All right, well, go ahead and get started with a quick introduction and take my turn my video on there so y'all can see me. Hopefully a few more people will be joining us. We had a really good showing on the call we had this morning, which went really well. I did forget to share my screen repeatedly, so I'm going to try really hard to not do that tonight. I've got a couple of colleagues with me, Matt Hepler, who's the environmental scientist at Appalachian Voices, and Rance Garrison, who's one of our comms specialists who lives in Southwestern Virginia, near our Norton office, and works with Matt and I and the rest of us who work out of that office. So my name is Willie Dodson. I'm the Central Appalachian Field Coordinator for Appalachian Voices. Appalachian Voices is a regional organization with offices in Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, and we also do some work in West Virginia and Kentucky, and have partnerships nationally as well. But we're focused in the Central Appalachian region, and then sort of the Piedmont to the east of Appalachia as well. We do some work. Our area of work all has to do with energy, primarily energy in the environment, trying to limit environmental impacts of fossil fuel industries, challenging the overbuild of fossil fuel industries. And then we also work on some public health and labor health issues related to coal mining, black lung, a little bit related to power plant workers in Tennessee. And we also work on some economic development projects in fossil fuel dependent or previously fossil fuel dependent communities that generally have to do with clean energy and with utilizing land that's been degraded by surface mining for coal and that sort of thing. My role within that is to monitor the impacts of coal mining and work with community members who are feeling those impacts, and kind of try to help connect the dots between community members, policymakers, journalists who are interested in it, other people who have various areas of expertise, to where we can try to solve problems like black lung and environmental degradation. We are recording this, and this will be made available later. I'm also going to share all of the slides that you'll be seeing with y'all later this week, as well as links to various other resources. We're gonna cover a lot of material. I'm gonna give an overview of the Upper South and Appalachia Citizen Air Monitoring Project, what we're trying to achieve with it, what kind of inspired us to get into this work. My team in Appalachian Voices, me and Matt and Rance and some of our colleagues who focus on mining, have historically largely focused on mine reclamation problems, water pollution problems, and it's more recent that we've started to focus a little bit more on air quality as well. So I'll talk about what led us to this project. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of nuts and bolts of the project. Many of y'all on this call are partners on the project who either have already or will be installing these devices called Purple Air sensors. So I'll go over a little bit of the kind of protocols for how we're using this equipment, but don't worry. If you're not getting all of it, we'll talk one-on-one for almost everybody. I mean, it's fairly simple and straightforward equipment, but it's a new thing to most people. And my commitment to you as a partner on this project is to make myself available to provide training and advice as needed. When you know you're going to set up a monitor, you can let me know in advance, and I'll block that time off on my calendar so that I'm available by the phone. I can set up one-on-one Zoom calls to do more intensive trainings and stuff as needed. And depending on where you are, I can come to your community as well if you're fairly close to kind of where I work. So I'm going to go through a bunch of the overview material and the background of this project, and then we'll pause for questions, and then we'll get into that nuts and bolts, and then we'll pause for questions again. Let's see. With that, I think I can just launch into it. Let me share my screen again. All right. So as I said, we're going to be talking about the Upper South and Appalachia Citizen Air Monitoring Project. And this is a project across 5 states with quite a few partners. The partners are listed here. Most of our partners are small grassroots community organizations dealing with environmental injustice of some sort in their communities. About a third of the partners are in the coal fields and are impacted by mining and processing and transport of coal. Altogether, about 2/3 are impacted by fossil fuels in some capacity, whether it be a natural gas compressor station, a coal export terminal in one community, power plants, et cetera. And then the other third are folks whose primary concern with the polluting industry in their community isn't necessarily have to do with fossil fuels. This is the geographic scope of where the project is unfolding. You can kind of see why we call it Upper South and Appalachia. We've got a few places that are Appalachia but aren't the South, a few places that are the South, Memphis, Norfolk, but that aren't Appalachia. You can see we're most concentrated along this kind of coal fields area in the spine of the 4 states where Appalachian Voices works. Norton, Virginia, for those of y'all who don't know, is right about where my mouse is. And that's where me and Matt and Rance, that's where our office is. So the problem we're trying to address has to do with fine particulate pollution, PM 2.5. PM's particulate matter 2.5 is a measurement of the size of it. PM 2.5 has a lot of sources. It's kind of all over the place, and it has some pretty serious health consequences. I don't have a great deal of expertise in the degree and severity and scope of all of the health consequences, nor really, I'm not a scientist either. There's some folks on the call who have deeper expertise than I do in a number of areas. So if you want to chime in the Q&A parts of the presentation, please do. But PM 2.5 is a major airborne pollutant in the country with health impacts, and it is monitored across the entire country by state regulators and the EPA to measure the concentration in the ambient air across the whole country. Now, the problem is that EPA and the states only have so many air monitors, and these monitors have blind spots. And so what we're trying to do with our project is look at the concentration of PM 2.5 in some of those areas where the regulators may not be monitoring. So 2.5 refers to a diameter of 2.5 microns. So you can see in this graphic, relative to the size of a human hair, how tiny PM 2.5 is. We also sometimes talk about PM 10. It's more like a coarse dust, and PM 2.5 is very fine dust, also referred to as soot a lot of the time. Most any sort of almost any industry is going to produce this stuff. Excavation produces this stuff. Tailpipe emissions, smoke a cigarette, burn a wood stove. Heavy excavation like we see on coal mines. The constituent parts of particulate matter can be any number of things, and some of those constituents could also present their own health hazards, but what we're looking at is just PM 2.5. We're not looking at the specific constituents, we're just looking at the concentration of airborne particulates that are this tiny. The reason that this is a particular health concern is because they're so tiny that they can be inhaled into the lungs and then pass through into the bloodstream from the lungs. Most of the communities where we're working with folks on monitoring this stuff do have a concern about PM 2.5 for its own sake, but a few are more focused on specific other pollutants. And it's important to note that levels of PM 2.5 aren't necessarily going to correlate with, for instance, ethylene oxide or styrenes or some of the other pollutants that are from manufacturing facilities in a way that I can predict or that our monitors are going to be able to kind of unlock for folks. The health impacts have a lot to do with pulmonary conditions and respiratory conditions for obvious reasons. There's also data that connects high elevations or high concentrations, of PM 2.5 to increased occurrences of premature death. In the communities where Appalachian Voices works on mining, there's a lot of folks with comorbidities. There's a lot of poverty in some of these areas, which tend to also be populations who have more health conditions. Kind of unique to where we work, we have a lot of black lung disease as well. So the exposure to PM 2.5 at high concentrations just out in the community became a particular concern to us because of things we were hearing from the communities where we were working. So, under the Clean Air Act, operations that are going to emit PM 2.5 or various pollutants may have to get a permit, and then there will be particular terms in their permit that limit specific pollutants. In addition to that, there are 6 pollutants that are called criteria pollutants, which are measured just in the ambient air across the nation. These are called National Ambient Air Quality Standards, which we often pronounce as NAQS. PM 2.5 is one of these pollutants that has a NAQS. So, as opposed to a particular limit on a particular pollutant for a particular power plant, let's say, with PM 2.5, we're also looking at the average concentrations of it for vast geographic areas. It could be a metropolitan area, it could be a big chunk of a state. The EPA and the state regulators in these states partner on a series of air monitors throughout these geographic regions, and then crunch the data from those air monitors to determine if the NAQS is being achieved. The NAQS for PM 2.5 currently is 12 micrograms per cubic meter. So what I mean by if it's being achieved, I mean that's kind of the target concentration that the EPA has put forward. When you're looking at a particular polluting facility, if it is polluting in levels higher than its permit allows, then you're talking about something that is non-compliant, or if it's within its permit terms, then it's compliant. With the NAQS, we're talking about, does this area, is it in attainment or non-attainment of the NAQS? If an area is not in attainment of the NAQS, then there's not necessarily an enforcement action that can be taken against a particular polluting industry, because it's not tied to a particular industry. It's in the whole area. What's supposed to happen if NAQS is not being met for an area is that is supposed to inform various permitting and enforcement and environmental cleanup projects and such that these regulators and other government bodies are supposed to undertake. So the NAQS currently, like I said, is 12 micrograms per cubic meter. Whoops. There's been a lot of advocacy in recent years to tighten that up, to make it a more strict standard to strive for. The latest scientific data and the consensus to the public health community is that it should be much lower. Most folks in the public health and environmental advocacy world have been pushing for EPA to lower it to 8 micrograms per cubic meter. The World Health Organization kind of uses 5 micrograms as an ideal benchmark. And it's important to note that there's not a concentration at which exposure to PM 2.5 just becomes totally safe and it's all just fine. It's just a matter of kind of threading the needle between public health priorities and living in a modern world with various industries. The Trump administration really flubbed a regular periodic update of this rule, where EPA was supposed to revisit the level that the NAQS was at and reconsider it, and was sued for that. And under the Biden administration, they have taken it up, and in response to a lot of advocacy, have put forward that they intend to lower it to somewhere between 9 and 10. So not as low as the public health world is asking for, but lower than the current standard. I don't know the timing on when this rule will be finalized, but I think it's going to be maybe sometime next year. certainly all of the project partners on the USACAMP will be kept abreast of developments on the NACs by Appalachian Voices. So I want to talk a little bit now about what got us into this work. Like I said, my focus is on the impacts of coal mining. One of the most common types of complaints that Appalachian Voices receives from community members and has for years and years has to do with dust. Dust related to the blasting on strip mines, dust coming off of coal trucks. There's various ways that dust gets into the communities from the coal mines. On the right side of your screen there, you see inside that green line, this is the mouth of the Black Eagle Deep Mine. There's a stockpile area. There's various conveyors that move the coal around from the mine to various places where it's just stored in piles and then loaded onto trucks. The trucks go out the haul road and then go up the valley and up this holler, or that's actually down the valley, but anyway, up this holler to where a processing plant is. This is the community of Eunice, and this is Route 3. There's quite a few coal mines all up and down Route 3 that are also sending coal to the processing plant that's up this holler right here. So the community of Eunice is dealing with dust coming off of the coal trucks and dust blowing off of the stockpile and out of the mouth of this mine when the trucks are coming out and they have to brake at the haul road. The act of braking jostles the trucks and causes a lot of dust to waft off and into this community. It's just a few hundred feet away. This is a photo taken of this kind of gap we see in the trees would be the gap that the river is making right about here. This photo was taken from one of these homes. I think this one with the white roof there. The people of Eunice started organizing themselves to make some noise about this because they couldn't get the coal company to do anything to control the dust. So Appalachian Voices started working with them to see if we could kind of add any muscle to the noise that they were already making to try to get the regulators to get this under control. And the regulators basically said that there's nothing that they can do, that there's nothing here that's non-compliant. Remember, this facility, and this is true of most mining operations in Appalachia, isn't required to get a Clean Air Act permit of any kind. So the NACs for this PM 2.5 is kind of the fallback tool in our regulatory framework to try to address a problem like this. I should also say that when you can see dust like this, you're seeing a lot of various sizes of particulates. PM 2.5 is tiny, but when you see a big cloud of dust like this, there's a good chance that there's tiny dust in the mix as well. So we looked into where is the EPA and the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection monitoring for PM 2.5. The orange dots on this map are the monitoring stations that are maintained by the regulators. The blue diamond is the community of Eunice and the Black Eagle Deep Mine, and all those red kind of splotches are mine permits in the state of West Virginia. So you can see that they're really not monitoring for PM 2.5. Not only are they not monitoring for it near Eunice, but they're really not monitoring for it anywhere in this part of the state where there's this major industry. I mean, the country depends on coal. The state of West Virginia is famous for coal. And this kind of 5 or 6 counties where all this coal is being mined, you can really see just the astonishing amount of mines in this area. It's not being monitored at all. I've showed this map to some folks and they say, well, it looks like they're trying to avoid it. I don't really quite feel that. I'm not going to rip EPA on that front because there's good reasons that they're monitoring in these locations. This is Charleston, this is Fairmont, small city, this is Morgantown, small city, this is Martinsburg, a small city, and then this is the Ohio River, where there's quite a lot of power plants and chemical facilities. The EPA has a prerogative to monitor the criteria pollutants in population-dense areas, and that makes sense. There are reasons for that. However, I'm an organizer in a rural area, and people have to breathe here too. So this is a blind spot that I want to address. thanks to Coal River Mountain Watch, which is a community group based in Naoma, West Virginia, just a couple miles from Eunice, we're able to do that. If it weren't for grassroots partners like Coal River Mountain Watch, we wouldn't be able to do much at all, because we're a regional organization. I don't have the depth of knowledge and relationships in Eunice that the folks in this picture have, and so I depend on them to build the trust with their neighbors, to install the monitors, to maintain the monitors. Grassroots partners like this are central to the Upper South and Appalachia Citizen Air Monitoring Project. One other issue that I'll mention real quickly that Appalachian Voices deals with around the mines. Here you see a truck on a mountaintop removal mine in Buchanan County, Virginia, called the Laurel Branch Surface Mine. And you can see that the trucks just are going across this barren, muddy earth. So the undercarriages of the trucks gets caked with this mud. And then when they come down into the community, and this is in a different community, but this is a helpful way to think about it. When they come down, and again, when they break, and then they snake through a narrow holler in a community, breaking all the while, then all of this mud that gets caked up in there falls off onto the roads and gets whipped up with every passing vehicle. So the community of Hurley, Virginia, has been having an awful problem with that. And Appalachian Voices has been working with them as well for several years. So prior to the air monitors that we're putting up now with all of our USACAMP partners, we have put up air monitors in Eunice and Hurley. It's kind of turned out to be kind of a pilot project as we're expanding on it now. In both of those communities, when we have looked at the averages of the readings that the air monitors are producing, the PM 2.5 levels tend to hover right around the current NACs of 12 micrograms per cubic meter. There's some spikes above it, but they tend to hover right around there. So when EPA follows through, knock on wood, of their commitment to lower the NACs to somewhere between 9 and 10, then these communities would appear to be in non-attainment, with the caveat that we have very limited data. Really, to monitor PM 2.5, you need a cluster of monitors. The concentrations of PM 2.5 is incredibly variable within hyperlocal areas. So we're really just scratching the surface here to try to fill in some of these gaps and kind of make a point to EPA that there's other areas that they need to be looking at. Similar to the map in West Virginia, this is where the mine in Hurley is. This is where the closest PM 2.5 monitor is. This is the Virginia coalfield region. They're not monitoring PM 2.5 in this region. So some colleagues of mine in Tennessee, they don't work on coal mining in the same way that I do. They work on some other issues, and a lot of it has to do with the TVA, the massive kind of quasi-public power utility all through the Tennessee Valley. And one of the issues that came on their radar is over in Memphis. I spoke with someone, I don't know if he's on the call right now, but last week about this to make sure I kind of had the story right. But so there's a power plant in South Memphis called the Allen Fossil Plant that burned coal, and that produces a byproduct called fly ash, just the ash from burning coal. And fly ash is full of toxic materials. And it was put in an unlined pond on site there at the fossil plant. These toxic materials leached into the groundwater and presented a serious environmental justice concern. This is a primarily Black and brown area, as is most of Memphis. And the community was up in arms about it. This water pollution issue needed to be addressed. There was also dust issues, with the fly ash at the power plant. The ask was for this fly ash to be cleaned up and moved to a lined and then capped impoundment, and for it to be moved to a lined and capped impoundment using a closed containment system by rail. What TVA decided to do, and the regulators decided to allow, was for them to instead move it in these trucks that have these tarps on them. They don't seal. Some of them, I'm not sure that I can't tell you that every tarp is always pulled down. I can tell you that the coal trucks are supposed to use tarps, and I see tons of them without tarps. So I don't know if there's a different situation in Memphis. But so this community was poisoned by this coal ash as it was being produced. And then now it's being poisoned as it's being moved from the Allen fossil plant in this area over to a landfill in this area. So you can see that they're trucking it through, very dense area. So this is where the official government particulate matter and other criteria pollutant monitors are in the state of Tennessee. We got a little bit different situation here than we're looking at in Hurley and Eunice, because Memphis is such a major metropolitan area. There's a lot of air monitors here. But remember how a moment ago I said that it's a very variable pollutant in a hyperlocal way. So, something else I want to say really quick about this map that's helpful is this also shows how EPA divvies up the kind of geographic regions to determine attainment of the NAAQS. It's just to make the point that it's not all necessarily within a state boundary. See, this one around Kingsport goes into Virginia and Tennessee. But anyway, so there are air monitors in Memphis, but the particulate matter problem posed by moving this fly ash has very hyperlocal impacts. And so we're going to be partnering with an organization called MCAP that is an environmental justice organization in South Memphis that's got some major wins with regards to ethylene oxide here recently, and is been working on accountability around the Allen fossil plant for a long time. And I just wanted to lift them up again, kind of why I put the Coal River Mountain Watch photo up as well, just to make the point that there's fairly little App Voices can do in a lot of places without partners who are the local experts of their own experience and who have, the credibility and the relationships and the understanding of the situation to know where to put air monitors and how to leverage the data that we're going to be getting from them towards the goals that the local communities have put forward. Let me also say that over the course of the next 3 years, we're going to be doing a number of webinars to provide updates on this project as it's unfolding. This is the initial one where I'm given a really high-level overview, but in the future, I really look forward to designing some webinars where we'll just totally hand the mic to Coal River Mountain Watch and MCAP and groups like that. One of the major goals of the project is for these different groups in different areas to kind of learn from one another and develop this sense of common cause and common identity and solidarity. So to that point, the objectives of the project are to collect and publicize PM 2.5 data in areas where the EPA monitoring is absent or inadequate. And like I said a moment ago, it's to create those opportunities for kind of cross-pollination of grassroots activism that is happening across the 5 states where we're working with folks. There are some limitations to the project. I spoke to this top one a little bit earlier. We're really only monitoring for PM 2.5. Some of the communities that we're working in have more specific concerns than simply dust, though dust, and I'm saying dust in shorthand, but fine respirable particulates, is a concern almost anywhere that there's any kind of industry. The other limitations have to do with the data. For one, EPA and state regulators are going to use their own data. This is a citizen science project. The data that we produce is not likely to be something that would be admissible in efforts for any kind of enforcement strategy brought through litigation or anything like that. It is useful though for public narrative, for talking to your local officials, for just demonstrating the problems and asking and urging those agencies to look into them with their own resources and address these problems in your community with their own resources. Another concern, or not a concern, but a limitation, is that to really determine if an area is in attainment of this NAAQS, National Ambient Air Quality Standard, EPA uses 3 years of data, and there's a little bit of a formula that goes through as well that kind of drops some of the highest percentile readings. And so we will be providing a report to all project partners on the data generated by the monitors that you as a project partner are responsible for on a quarterly basis. But again, the data from a quarter, we can extrapolate that and see what we think we would see. And then when we have 2 quarters, we'll have a little bit more data, and 3 quarters, we'll have a little bit more data. But EPA bases their sense of attainment on 3 years of data and this other formula that we're not necessarily going to be crunching all of our data through. We're at least going to just be looking at 24-hour averages and annual averages and that sort of thing. And then lastly, as I've tried to cover already, NAAQS attainment is about a geographic region. It's not about a specific polluting operation. So even if there's a power plant in your neighborhood, and you have an air monitor in your neighborhood, and there's another air monitor across town where there's not a power plant, and the PM is really bad in your air monitor, it's not like that's a device that measured the PM coming directly out of the smokestack. It's a device that measured the ambient air. So you could draw a logical conclusion from what caused the PM 2.5 to be high in the neighborhood close to the smokestack, but we're not able to really definitively measure specific polluting operations. All right, I'm going to pause here and drink some water, and also invite some questions and comments. Just drop them in the chat. No questions, no comments. I see a hand. Go ahead and write your comment in the chat. Or Matt, if you're able to take Joyce off mute there. Can you take yourself off mute, Joyce? There you go. Go ahead, Joyce.
Should have speaking permissions now, Joyce.
Go ahead, Joyce. I think I can hear the ambient noise on your end.
Oh, okay. It keeps hitting mute again.
We can hear you now. Shoot, we could hear you. Matt, I'm gonna trust you to try to work that out with Joyce and answer Anne's question in the meanwhile in the chat. So Anne asked, could data collected from purple air monitors to verify levels that are out of the NAAQS, that are not attaining the NAAQS, would EPA accept that data to use it to prompt them to investigate further? That's a really good question. So the USACAMP is funded by an EPA grant, and the express purpose of that grant is it's kind of EPA acknowledging that there are limitations to their own monitoring network, and that environmental justice organizers and citizen scientists are interested in doing this work themselves. So EPA wrote this grant project to create a way for environmental justice projects and citizen scientists to give this data to the EPA so that EPA can consider it for that exact purpose. So we would hope so. Now that it, like I said, it's not any kind of, you know, foolproof like the strength of litigation type kind of thing, but EPA is interested in the data. And I can tell you that I know of one success story, a group called Clean Air North Carolina, that actually partnered with the Purple Air Company very early on in even developing these monitors in the first place. Clean Air NC did put monitors in different parts of Charlotte, North Carolina, and use that data to demonstrate to EPA higher levels of particulate matter in an environmental justice community. And then EPA did place a monitor in that community. So it's, I don't want to oversell, you know, we don't have any silver bullets here, but that is how Clean Air NC was able to use the data, and EPA is expressly interested in the data for that purpose. All right.
Joyce, you should be off mute now if you want to ask your question.
I didn't have a question. I just hit the wrong button.
Okay. We put you on the spot. Anything to say?
You sure did.
I see Irene Leach on the screen. Do you have a question, Irene? You're on mute if you do, or maybe we're just putting people on the spot. Okay. Anybody else have a question? All right. Could I ask folks to drop in the chat where you're from? I'd like to see I'd like to see where all folks are. Cool, cool. Awesome. Good showing. Great. Well, I appreciate you all joining. I love seeing, I'll tell you what, me, and I don't know if Matt ever feels this way, but working on coal mining issues in a world and an environmental movement that is rightly very concerned about climate change and coal emissions, which impacts everyone, I feel siloed away often in the Appalachian Mountains working on these coal mining issues. It's a little bit niche and can feel a little bit disconnected from some other arms of social justice and environmental justice and public health advocacy. And launching this project with all of you has been very satisfying to me, because it is a concern and an interest that has developed organically for me out of the issues of the coal mining, that we're now able to kind of roll in a productive way to some of these other movements who aren't even anywhere near us. It really feels like adding and not taking anything away. I don't feel like I'm losing capacity or anything just by talking about what we've learned dealing with coal mining and connecting it with folks in these other communities. So I really appreciate everybody's participation. Those of y'all who are part of the project and are already putting up or will be putting up monitors, I really appreciate it. And the rest of you, I'm so happy that you're here just to learn. Let me share my screen again, and we'll talk a little bit more about kind of the hands-on aspects of the project now. So, all right, so we're going to be using these monitors called Purple Air monitors or Purple Air sensors. These are really handy dandy little tools. They do require power source, and they do require Wi-Fi. There are ways that they can work without Wi-Fi. They have an SD card. They'll collect the data on the SD card. But for our purposes, we're not using any of those. We're only doing the Wi-Fi connected ones just to streamline how we manage and put together so much data, because we've got, y'all saw that list of partners. We've got dozens of partners in 5 states here. But what they do is they have these blue panels. This is one of the monitors, and it fixes to a building like this, or you can screw it to a like porch post or zip tie it or whatever. And then underneath there's these blue panel cartridge thingies. They have a laser inside, and so the lasers detect the concentrations of PM 2.5 as it wafts by. So they generate a continuous measurement of the concentration of PM 2.5 in the area immediately under where these things are mounted. So you want to mount them. We're encouraging folks to mount them, around head level, because we're trying to get a sense of what people are breathing. So, anywhere between 4 and 10 feet or 4 and 8 feet or something outside your building. We have a couple partners that are in very dense areas, UVA-wise in particular, where I've told them if they want to put it up higher just to get it out of where there's going to be, hundreds of kids walking by all the time, then that's fine. But so each of these lasers generates a continuous measurement of the concentration, and then the device records each individual laser's reading, but it also averages the reading that these 2 lasers are giving, and gives you that average. And one reason it does that is that if the lasers ever give drastically different readings, the device will tell you that it's not working right, because it's implausible for the concentration of PM 2.5 right here to be wildly different than right here. So the device will show you that it's not working. Like I said, these have to stay connected to Wi-Fi, and that enables them to load the data in real time onto a map. And from this map, you can download tables of the data as well. And this is something that Matt is going to be doing on a quarterly basis, and we'll be crunching the numbers and figuring the averages and sending you all reports of that. Let me share my screen again, and I'll show you what the map looks like. It's a really cool tool. So here's just a screen grab of the map that I took a month or so ago in West Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia. These gray dots, that's where a monitor has been but is no longer. So this is our office where we've registered a lot of these and toyed around with them. Let me open the map here online. All right. So this is what it looks like. And every single one of these is a purple air monitor. The number that you're seeing there is the PM 2.5 reading. You can change the parameter you're looking at up here, and I've set mine to PM 2.5, but I think the default is AQI, air quality index. But since we're kind of using, for our purposes, the NACS as the benchmark that we're kind of evaluating against, then to change what you're seeing from AQI to PM 2.5, you just click this bar up here, and then it lets you change the parameters here. It'll also tell you PM1, PM10, just different sizes of particulates. So I have it set on PM 2.5. Apply conversion, you always want that clicked onto US EPA. The devices, how to say it? Matt, tell me if this isn't the best way to say it, but I think the way I would say it is that they're kind of like inaccurate in a predictable way, and applying a formula to the data that they output makes them far more accurate. And so toggling this US EPA option applies that formula to what you see here. Is that a fair way of putting it, Matt? Can't hear Matt, but just going to keep going.
Yeah. Sorry, Willie. I was helping a person out.
Sorry.
I'll be with you in a moment.
That's okay. No worries. You can also over here change if you're looking at an average over the past hour, the past 10 minutes, etc. Let's change it to 10 minutes and see what we see. Interesting. So this one right here, this is the Coal River Mountain Watch office. So a moment ago, looking at 1 hour, it was at 11. But when we looked at 10 minutes, it was at 23. So that could mean, you know, an incredibly dusty coal truck just went by. It could mean that a blast went off on one of the mountaintop removal mines around here. I bet it means there's a car parked in front of here idling or somebody smoking a cigarette. And that comes to a good point about placement of your monitors. You want to put them on not where people smoke cigarettes. If there's a burn barrel or a fire pit or a wood stove on the structure, you want to put it on the opposite side of the structure. We want to try to control for that as much as possible. Here, let me click on this and I'll show you what you can see looking at an individual monitor. So it shows you the readings going back. You can see some spikes here. You can click on the 3 lines here to download as a CSV, and then you can open that in a spreadsheet to look at all of the data to date since putting up the given monitor. And again, that's something that we will be doing on the back end and running our own reports and providing to all of our project partners. You look down here where it says 100%. This is when I said how if the device isn't working right, it'll tell you. This is where you look for that. That percentage is the device's confidence in its own readings. If that starts to tick down, then the device is not getting plausibly similar readings from lasers, from channels A and B. That's almost always a spider web is why that's happening. So when we're talking about maintenance, it's pretty simple. Compressed air like you would use to clean out your keyboard. Just get one of these. This little red straw that comes with it fits perfectly in these little holes on the thing. So you just go through and put it just barely in each of these holes and also up in here, and you just blast it with the compressed air. And then the confidence level reading won't come up immediately. So you check it after a couple hours and it should have come back up. And if it doesn't, you blast it again, try it again. And if it still doesn't, you call me and we try to figure it out. I did have one monitor that it didn't, it just wouldn't correct. And I got in touch with Purple Air. They walked me through it and they were convinced that it just wasn't working. So they actually sent me new lasers. So I thought this was really funny because my degree is Appalachian Studies, but I'm like a laser technician now. I corrected lasers on this little doodad here. So going back to the map, let's just look a little bit at some of the other areas where the project is. Or I'll just show you the scope. So this isn't Appalachian Voices and partners. This is anyone who has a Purple Air sensor and has chosen to make the data public. This is App Voices / Southern Appalachian Mountain Stewards. These are us with KFTC. These are App Voices. These are Corver Mountain Watch. You know, so we're kind of down through this area. KFTC, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, has put several up in Covington, Kentucky. Let's zoom in. I want to show y'all something on this really red one here. I look at Cincinnati periodically because we have a partner in Covington and because I have family in Cincinnati, and I see, oh wait, no, this is a different one. I don't know what's going on here. There's one up here that is periodically crazy high like this, and I've clicked on it, and it's the American Sign Museum. And when I was in Cincinnati recently, I was telling people that. I was like, yeah, there's this one air monitor that just every now and then it spikes crazy high at the American Sign Museum. And they say, oh, well, you know what they do there is they bust open all these old neon signs and they fix them. So my theory is that they're releasing all this neon in these one-off ways. It doesn't appear to be like a chronic problem. It's just these one-off things that'll happen there. All right, so anyway, so that's how this works. There's another tool that we can use. Actually, I'll zoom in on one more area just because I know Anna's on the call. So there are these purple air monitors at Lambert's Point. This is where there's a major coal export terminal. So there are a couple here already. I don't know if you all with the Sierra Club have anything to do with that, but I think this is more or less Lambert's Point. I don't know this area too well, but this is an area where coal trains come bringing the coal from where me and Matt work to be shipped out overseas, and it's, you know, it just goes to show we're connected quite literally by the impacts of the industry, even though, you know, me and Matt are over here, Ann's over here. So this project is an effort to give us all something to do together, you know, that supports the work that we're both doing in our respective communities. All right, I'll show you this other tool. This website is just called environmentaldata.org, and a partner in Pennsylvania showed this to me. The dots on this map are purple air monitors, as well as other sorts of monitors that are all placed here. And there's a little bit more functionality, or at least more immediate functionality here than on the purple air site. You can download the data from the purple air site and then do whatever you need with it. But on this site, when you click on, I went ahead and clicked on a few of these. I'm looking at Kingsport, Tennessee. The ones with the red circles around are the ones I've clicked on. It shows you all of the readings from all of the ones you've highlighted, you know, in real time, and you can toggle and, you know, zoom in or zoom out the time you're looking at. You can choose day, month, or year. You can move forward or backward in time, and you can also download the data here. This is interesting to me because it's fun to and informative to click several that are in a similar situation or a similar area, I mean, and then you can see how certain how levels kind of fluctuate, but kind of generally fluctuate together. And then we get here and what happened here. You know, there's a spike here that's not showing up anywhere else. When things get real low like that, probably rainy days holds down the particulate matter. But anyway, so this is a cool tool. We'll be sharing this with folks. So for those of y'all who are part of the project, when you get your purple air monitors, either I'll ship them to you or I'll meet up with you depending on where you are and if I can actually get there. We can walk through this more, or if I ship them to you, we can get on a Zoom and we can walk through this more. But you have to register them with purple air for them to show up on this map. And then we also fill out a form, an online form for me and Matt to be able to keep track of the inventory just internally at App Voices. So the way you register this device well, first, and this is the part that it's fairly simple, but if there's a stumbling block, it's usually at this stage, is configuring it to the Wi-Fi on the house or the building that you're going to put it at. These devices, they put out their own little Wi-Fi network. And so what you do is you plug it in, you make sure that it is showing, I don't know if you can see this, but the little red light in there, and a little blue and green light will blink as well. So you make sure those lights are there to just confirm that it's getting the power source. And then you're going to open up your smartphone or a tablet, any Wi-Fi enabled device, and you're going to just go to wherever you would go on your phone to look at available Wi-Fi networks. Sometimes it can take up to 10 minutes, maybe even a little bit longer, for the Purple Air device's Wi-Fi network to show up. But let's see, you guys see that where I have a Wi-Fi network called Purple Air -567C, spectrum setup 90. There is just the Wi-Fi in my house, but then my phone is also detecting the Wi-Fi network from this device. So what you do is you select that Wi-Fi network, and that gives your phone the ability to then connect this to the Wi-Fi in your house. Little bit confusing. It's not too bad, but like I say, when people have called me needing help, it's usually at this stage. So when you select that Wi-Fi network, your phone should open up a little screen that shows you. It looks like the Purple Air, web page, a part of the Purple Air website, and it shows you the other Wi-Fi networks that are available. And so I would choose Spectrum Setup 90, and of course it's not doing what it's supposed to right now because I'm doing a presentation. But I would choose the Wi-Fi for my house, and at that point, the Purple Air device will connect to the Wi-Fi in my house. Then what you do, and by the way, all of this is in a PDF I'm going to provide to everybody. It's also all in the slides on this presentation that I'll also provide to everybody. And like I say, I'm available. You can call me. My phone number is on the slides. My email, we can set up a time for me to assist with this. But so once you have it connected to your Wi-Fi, you open up a page, you open up your web browser, and you just go to purpleair.com and select register sensor. So I've already gone there. Let me show you so you just go to Purple Air and you go to sensor and you just hit register your sensor. And then it gives you this form to fill out. We have some kind of naming protocols and things that are important for our particular project in how you fill this form out. There's also on Purple Air, there's this sensor startup guide. It's very helpful, but do not rely only on this, because we have some added steps that are important to enable me and Matt to process all this data and to service your sensors that are not included here. So ignore this. Instead, pay attention to this, which I will provide you in a PDF. This is that same information from the startup guide plus the additional steps that you have to undergo as a part of our project, which are things like this. You have to connect your device to Matt Hepler's email address and things like that. I've gone ahead and filled out one of the forms here with the device that I have in front of me. So the device ID is this number at the top of the barcode there. But then there's also what in our internal kind of inventory system we call equipment ID, which is a unique identifier that we've given it. So you'll put device ID here. You have to put Matt's name as the associated email. You're going to select outside. For location name, and this is why it's important to follow the steps on the PDF I provide rather than the Purple Air Startup Guide. You use the equipment identifier, the equipment ID that we've developed, our own internal system for that. It'll be written on your sensor in Sharpie. It looks like that. It'll automatically drop a pin. You confirm that that's right. If you need to change where it is, you can change where it is. You're going to leave these options as they are. And again, all this is in the PDF. Data processors, you can leave this as it is for most folks. In some rural areas in particular where you're on satellite internet and you might have a data cap just on the internet in your house, the same way people do on their cell phones, you're going to uncheck create new weather underground sensor. These sensors just that is automatically toggled yes, and it's part of the way that the Weather Underground app tells you the weather in your area. Is it triangulates conditions that these sensors and a number of other weather sensing devices are generating. But if you have a data concern for your internet, you can just uncheck that, and it'll save some of the data and like bandwidth that this thing is eating up. For owner's name and owner's information, you put me. This enables me to troubleshoot with Purple Air, and then you just agree and register, and that's that. And at this point, it should show up on the map, except for I was having some trouble in an earlier step, so we're just going to ignore that for now. Then the next thing you need to do is fill out this form on an app called EpiCollect, which you'll need to download it on your phone, and we'll provide you with the form or with access to the form, and it just gives you the date, gives you the time. That's not the time anymore, but so uses military time. So we're at 1904. At this point, the name is your name. It's not the equipment ID. Equipment type, there's a drop-down menu. We have a couple of sites that we're partnering with some folks at Virginia Tech who are going to do other monitoring other than PM 2.5. But for all the PM 2.5 monitors, you click that, and then there's a number of prompts that are pretty redundant, where you enter in the equipment ID. The reason is new installation. In the future, you may have to do maintenance. And then you take a picture of the barcode, take a picture of the serial number. So this is all very redundant to just ensure that we know where all of the specific devices are. This says photo of power supply, only if changing power supply. So that would be a maintenance thing. But like power supply, we've numbered as well. This one is number 1. Which corresponds to AV1, things like that. There's an SD card in here, which also has a number on it. You don't have to take that out, though. We've confirmed that the right number is there. Yeah, let's see. Okay, so Emily has asked me to repeat some of the stuff about the Wi-Fi. Okay. I mean, I can go over it again. It is, like I said, it is the most confusing part of this. I'll say it again briefly, real quick. So when the Purple Air sensor is plugged in, it puts out a Wi-Fi network. You go to available networks on your phone, and it should be there. Takes 10 or 15 minutes sometimes. Sometimes it shows up right away. So you click it, and it at that point should open up a different window. Yeah, this time it's working. Okay. So it opens up this different window where you then select the Wi-Fi network that you want it to connect to. So I'm going to choose Spectrum Setup 90. You need to know the password in advance. So when you're talking to the homeowner who you're working with, if this isn't going on your home, make sure they know the password, and the password is ready for you to use when you come by to install the thing. Let me see if I can remember my password. I don't know if I can. I always remember it or forget it. Okay, looks like it works. So we'll check the purple air map again at the end of this and see if this monitor shows up on the map. I have covered most of what I want to cover. Let me show you all just a couple other resources really briefly, and then we'll go back to some Q&A. Way Cool Maps. We're big fans of Way Cool Maps at Appalachian Voices. I showed you these two already. This is the purple air map. This is the environmental data map. I also was looking for, and Julia, who's on the call, helped me with this, but I've been looking for and asking some researchers and other experts about how to look at wind patterns to help our partners identify the best place to put a monitor if you're trying to measure the impact of a given polluter. And again, we're looking at ambient air quality. We're not measuring, from a smokestack. So it's, we can't do it that precisely. But if we want to put a monitor upwind and downwind of a given facility and, see what the difference is, we need to know how the wind blows. So Wind Finder shows you in real time the general direction wind is blowing, and wind history shows you what it sounds like, the historical data about that. There is an issue with these, which is that most of the data for wind directions comes from airports. And so in some of our rural areas, we're not particularly close to airports. When I look at windfinder.com, there will be, it might, there's just a bunch of arrows. That's the direction that the wind is blowing. So it might look like the wind is blowing generally to the southwest across West Virginia. But I am working in a particular holler that is oriented like straight north and south. And for those of y'all who aren't from Appalachia, when we say holler, we just mean small, narrow valley, like a creek valley, as opposed to a big, wide river valley. And so I have a lot of curiosity about how does that Appalachian topography impact the hyperlocal wind patterns. I don't have an answer or good resources for that yet. But these are really cool maps that give you some other wind data. So the roles and responsibilities in the project, basically the project partner is the primary person responsible for, or the primary entity responsible for the 1 or 2 or 3 monitors, however many it is, that are entrusted to you, and Appalachian Voices is the backstop and the data cruncher. That's the long and short of it. We do have a custody contract, and anybody who takes one of these monitors has to sign the custody contract that just affirms, yes, I'm going to install this, I'm going to be responsible for maintaining it, and that affirms that App Voices is your backstop to maintain it as necessary. Here's our contact. I'll stop here and see if we got other questions.
Willie, we did have one question. I think we've since maybe covered some of it, and I typed a little response, but we did have one in the Q&A box if you want to take an attempt to answer that one.
In the Q&A box. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Oh, it says no open question. Oh, okay. Who tracks the monitor's data? If installed at a private residence, does the homeowner or resident get trained on how to read the data? So that's a great question. So the best way to make sure the homeowner is in the loop would be for me to speak with you as the partner on how to look at the maps and stuff the way we've done today. I'm also happy to talk to the homeowner as well. But anybody can look at the data on the purple air map and on that other environmentaldata.org map. And in addition, we will be crunching the numbers and putting out these quarterly reports that we will provide to the project partner and it's then the partner's responsibility to provide that data to the community member. But we have a directory of all the people involved, and you can also just give us the if you're comfortable with it and the given community member is comfortable with it, you can give us their name and contact as well, and then they'll go in the directory as well. And so both, you know, the custodian that is the representative of the given partner organization and the host, whoever's home it is, will be in our directory and will receive those reports. And we'll do our best to answer any follow-up questions, you know, subsequent to those reports going out. Any other questions? All right. Oh, Crystal, you got a question, or is your hand up from earlier?
Hey, I do have a question. Thank you. This is really neat. Um, we have one close to ours that is offline right now, but I do appreciate this. Living in a community with like a lot of two sets of train tracks, a busy right next to the interstate, very a lot going on down there. But my question was, like, when you were showing your purple air on the computer screen, like I was looking at it also, and my numbers are higher than yours, like what you were showing in your real time. And I'm wondering if maybe something on my data layer, like I didn't have it incorrectly. Cause
it was probably the AQI.
okay.
So when you open it on your computer, the parameter that is going to show up here in the top left, are you seeing mine now?
Yep.
It'll open up as AQI, which stands for air quality index. And
okay.
where is it? I don't know where it is here, but and that takes various parameters into account to give you a measure of air quality in a little bit more broad sense than just PM 2.5. So what you do is you click that top left bar, and then for data layer, you hit the drop down and you choose raw PM 2.5, and then you toggle apply conversion to make sure US EPA conversion is on, and then you'll see similar numbers to what I'm seeing.
Okay. I don't know what. I'm just still not seeing the raw. Oh, there it is. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that looks much better.
Yeah.
I was worried. I was worried about a lot of people. What's going on? But thank you.
Numbers, and you're seeing AQI numbers. It's a grim day.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Sure. Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, you guys, for joining us tonight. And those of y'all who I've met already, or there's a handful of y'all I've known for years working on this, but those of y'all who I've met around this project, I've really enjoyed starting to build this partnership. And the pursuant to our EPA grant, the project unfolds over 3 years. So I really look forward to continuing to work with you all over 3 years. And then, by the way, at the end of that 3 years, you can give these back to us if you want, but you can keep them also at the end of the 3 years. But for purposes of our grant reporting and like Matt having to crunch all this data, we're going to do that for a full 3-year period. So we look forward to working with you all during that time. Bye, everybody.